Hey guys, just want to start by saying that of course there are some really good Japanese websites that are very useful and have all sorts of good information on them and are easy to use, user-friendly, very intuitive and all that sort of thing, of course. However, there are a lot of problems associated with Japanese websites, and what prompted this video is it comes up all the time. Regularly we have all sorts of issues arise about this. But in the last week, we've had 3 occasions where our viewers have talked about it. So one example was, we showed you a video of a big sign, a big mobile sign. So it was a big truck with a big illuminated sign on the back driving around in a big city in Japan. And it had a big website address on it. Now, we actually was too busy paying attention to the big flashing sign that we didn't pay much attention to the website address, but a couple of switched on viewers did. And they noticed that in the address was actually a kanji. It was actually a Japanese kanji symbol, which is sort of strange in a website address. So the guys that noticed it actually spent a bit of time trying to find the website and couldn't find it, which meant that some company was paying a lot of money to have that truck drive around advertising their website, where in actual fact you couldn't find the website with the information they'd given you, which is sort of a bit of a waste of money. And that's typical. We get that sort of thing all the time. The other one, we had 3. The other one we had was somebody contacted us and said, oh, we know that you're always looking for English-friendly doctors and dentists and professional people and all sorts of English-friendly businesses. And we found a really good English-friendly doctor's surgery that we thought you might want to tell your viewers about. And we said, yep, that's great, we need lots of those. So the person gave us a link to the doctor's surgery's website address, to the clinic's website address, and we tried to open it and it didn't open. It just sort of like it was loading and it never opened. And we get that a lot. We get that a lot here. So okay, so we searched. Had the name of the clinic, so we searched the name of the clinic, try and find the address. Couldn't find the website address anywhere. I eventually tried a few different variations and eventually found the website address and tried to open the page, and same thing. It just sat there just loading and just never opened. And we get that a lot here. The other one was, there was 3. There was that. Oh, the third one was we showed you that interesting website for the it's part of the Japan Hello Work system, and it's a government organisation that is trying to find jobs for foreigners. So there's one in Tokyo, one in Nagoya, one in Osaka. We showed you that. We did a video about that this week and showed you that website, and someone left a comment on that and said they really need to upgrade their website. So that's all been in the last week, and we get this all the time. So it's prompted it, and it's just the way it is. So this video is not going to help with that. All it is a heads up, so that when you come to Japan, or if you're in another country trying to search Japanese websites, if you have trouble, you know, don't be surprised, because it's just the way it is. The first problem that we have is finding Japanese websites. So interestingly, when you do business here, people will often give you a business card and it won't have a website address on it. And it usually has the address of the company, because that's really important to people who do business here. They want the address of the company, and it has the phone number and the fax number. And fax is still really popular here. A lot of systems here have the fax at the center of the system. You know, fill out this form, do this, fax it to this number. It's really still a central part of life in Japan. There's a lot of things that we can do. You know, there's a pilot lodging flight plans. You can do that online in a lot of countries now. Not here. You know, you have to phone it through or fax it through. So quite often people give you their business card, and on there it's got all the company information, but it doesn't have the website address for their website. So then you go and try and search the website address, and the next thing that they do is they don't use. Sometimes they do. Now again, some companies are switched on about this and have kept up with the technology, but the majority of them, it's still like back in the 90s. And it really is true. I was talking to a guy who's a sort of a business specialist here, and he knows about this sort of stuff. I don't want to say who he is, but he knows about all this sort of stuff, and he said that the way Japanese websites are now is exactly the same way as the first Japanese websites were in the 90s. They haven't changed them. And whether that's because this is one of the problems with the English level here being so low, is a lot of things like this are really disconnected. A lot of things like this that because most Japanese people can't use English to communicate, they usually don't spend any time on English language websites, or other language websites for that matter, not just English. So the only websites they ever see are in Japanese, which means, and that includes everybody, the users and the business owners and the bosses and everybody else. The only websites they ever see are Japanese websites, which is why Japanese websites are really different from websites that you find elsewhere in the world. We talked about it on another video about one of the central points to a Japanese website is the president's message. And apparently one of the first websites ever made in Japan back in the 90s actually was just a president's message. So it was a message from the boss of some company on a website, and that was all the information that was on the website. And then over time they added a bit more to it, but that was the central issue. And the president's message is just fluff. It's just fluff. It's just a page of fluff about how we want to strive to work hard, to do our best, all that sort of fluff. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't give you any information. And this is the thing. I think in most countries we see the internet and websites as being central to the information, you know, to give us information. So just going back a couple of steps. So when you want to try and find the website, so the guy's given you a business card and there's no website address on it. So you go and search the name of the company, and you can search it in Google search, or you can search it in a Japanese browser search, and nothing comes back. And it's so, well, then what do you do? And we've actually used phone numbers before, because we've searched the name of the company, no response. Searched the name and the city, no response. Searched all sorts of different, no response. And then eventually searched the phone number of the company. And of course that gives you a whole heap of results. And in amongst those results, if you're lucky, might be the website that belongs to the company. And quite often what they've done is they've used a random sort of, well, probably not random to them. They probably think that the word has meaning to them, probably. But to the customer, the word has no meaning at all. Just some random word and numbers. And quite often numbers, just nothing. And you look at it, what does this mean? You know, 4 or 5 letters and a couple of numbers that they've used as their website addresses. It has no meaning. You know, and of course that's not going to show, you're not going to find that in a search. So then you finally, you know, we often search their phone number. So finally you find their website address, and you have a look at the web page, and here's their web page, and they've got, you know, the president's message. You know, we strive hard to do our best to fight. Yes, yes, yes. And not much else. You know, we were buying a piece of equipment recently, and we needed some information about it, and we went to all these different websites for all these different companies that sold this piece of machinery, and none of them had the equipment. You couldn't see the equipment, and there was no price lists, there was no equipment. You know, most websites from around the world, if they sell something, you go to their website and you'll see their products, won't you? You know, this is what we sell, and often they'll also have the prices as well. You know, we sell this machine for this amount of money, and here's our top of the range machine, this amount of money, and it's information. So that, you know, the website gives you the information you need. So by the time you contact the company, you're pretty well ready to buy whatever it is, aren't you? Or you might just buy it online. And quite often that's what we do, isn't it? That's what the internet's good for, isn't it? But not here. You know, you search all these, finally find these companies, and then search through their website, and it's all fluff. You know, one page has got the president's message about how hard they try. Another page has all the information about the company, because in Japanese websites that's really important. You've got to have all the information about the company itself, and how many employees it has, and how much, what do they call it, equity it has, how much money they've got in the bank, basically, how much they turn over a year. And you know, usually you don't care, do you? If you're buying a piece of equipment from some big company, and you know they're a big company, well, you don't really need to know how many employees. Who looks at that? Who really looks at that? Interestingly, we might not, you know, but I was actually sitting with a Japanese guy once, looking for that piece of equipment. I said to him, look, I've searched everywhere, I can't find it. And he said, oh, give me a look. And he's got onto the computer and he's searching all in Japanese, right? He's searching all in Japanese. And he finally gets to their website, and there it is. I said, there it is, because I'd found it. That's the website, that's the one. And so he starts going through it, and I said, see, there's nothing in there, is there? He says, no. And then he goes straight to the page, and he's sitting there saying to me, oh, they've got 300 employees, and oh, look at this, they turn over, 500 million. And it's like, well, I don't care. He did care. He really did care. He was interested to see all that, and we didn't need to know that. Interesting, the piece of equipment we're looking for is made by the same people who make the traffic lights. So they're a huge company, right? We know that already. We don't need that. Page is a waste of time. So you've got the president's message, you got this other page that's all the stuff that's only really interesting to an accountant or the tax office, and then other fluff, and often nothing at all about the products, and no prices or anything. And it's really common, quite often we'll be sitting with a group of people talking about something. Hey, let's do this, or let's do this, or should we do this, or should we do this? And someone will get on. Oh, I'll have a look, and they'll get on, and they'll be sitting there on the hoe, stroking the hoe, and they'll oh, here it is. Here's their website, and they sit there and they're flicking around, stroking, going from page to page for 10 minutes, and we'll be sitting there talking about something else, and after 10 minutes they'll put the whole down, and you say, how'd you go? And yoko karanai, which means don't really know, and this is actually an interesting point. They don't say, I don't really know. They don't say that. They go, don't really know. And this is another point. So probably what contributes to this, and this is where probably this video might be of interest to some people, is just the cultural thing that creates this. Because there's a couple of cultural things and social things here that create this sort of situation. One is that a lot of these people have just never seen an English-speaking website or another language website and see how they work and how they function so well. I mean, nothing better than a good website, is there? You get on the internet, you find what you're looking for, find a good website, oh brilliant, got all the information you need, oh look, it's got that too, that's useful to know, yeah, I'll have one of those, bang, and live in 3 days. Yay, And a lot of people here have never experienced that because the only websites they ever get on are Japanese. Another couple of points too, and this runs off into all sorts of other aspects of life in Japan, is that Japanese people are incredibly patient and are often really comfortable not really knowing. So whereas some people from some backgrounds and cultures might get really frustrated that they're trying to find some information, they can't find it, and they don't really know thing, drives us crazy. Whereas with a lot of Japanese people, they're comfortable not really knowing. It's just because that's just the way Japanese society works. There's a lot of things like this where the information's not clear and people don't really know. And that includes people that work for these companies and organisations as well. Quite often they don't really know, and there's this element all the time of don't really know, and people are comfortable with that, and they're patient with that. No, it's just the way it is. We'll have to phone them up and ask them, and then you phone them up, and then you get the same fluff on the phone too, which means that people will spend half an hour, 40 minutes on the phone then, talking to the company, trying to find out information from them. And at the end, quite often they'll get off the phone and say, don't really know. I was with a guy one time and he had to find 2 pieces of information. He had to find out what time or when, if we're going to have a meeting with these people again, and something else about money. 2 things he had to find out. He talked to this guy for 30 minutes, and at the end of it, got off the phone. I said, what about that meeting? Don't really know. I said, what about the money? Don't really know. So the 2 pieces of information he had to find, and he was quite comfortable with that. Not really knowing. So there's a really strong element to that, which is why these websites are just sort of fluff. Quite often are just sort of fluff that really don't give you any sort of information at all, and people are comfortable with that. So, one of the classics, and the one that we hear about the most, that people talk to us about the most, we get messages all the time. Look, I got on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, and because they have English pages on their Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, and people get on there trying to find out about Japanese visas, what do I need to get a visa, and which visa can I have, and try and find the information. And then they send us a message and say, look, I've been on the MOFIS, you suggested we go to the MOFIS site and have a look, can't work it out. And it happens all the time because it's a mess. It's a mess. It's not intuitive at all. It's just a mess. It's a maze. It's an almost impossible maze. And even if you've been on it a few times, you know, sometimes we go back on it to check things because we're making a video about something and we want to check something, and go back on there to check it. And it hasn't improved. It's the same as it's been for the last 15 years. It hasn't improved. It's just a mess, you know, and all the information's in there somewhere, but you just can't find it. In actual fact, if you search a lot of the topics on the net, what you actually get, if you use different phrases about immigration and visas in Japan, quite often where you end up is a private website, because there's one really switched on immigration lawyer who's taken all the information from the MOFA, from the government website, put it on his own website, and obviously used you know, search engine optimization tricks, so that when people search those things, they go to his website, and his website's actually easier to understand, which is really clever because he's an immigration lawyer, and then if you want to talk to him, he'll charge you money, you know. So, and we won't promote that. We actually had bad dealings with immigration lawyers in the past. They're not very good. Quite often, there are some good ones out there, but so yeah. The bottom line is, guys, if you're going to be trying to use Japanese websites, and I mean this is all, everything that we've talked about so far has been in English and Japanese. So assuming that you can search things in Japanese and navigate your way through the websites in Japanese, if you can only search and use the websites in English, it's even worse. It's even worse, because as bad as these websites are, most of them don't have English, of course, because it's Japan. Again, we're not saying they should have English. We're not saying what they should do. We're just saying what exists. And of course, most of the time there is no English, but on the odd occasion there is English. Usually the English page that's been put in there has less information than all the Japanese pages. So if the Japanese part of the website is unhelpful and not useful because it doesn't have enough useful information, the English page is even worse. You know, because there might be 8, 9, 10 pages in Japanese, but there might only be one in English. So it's even less useful than the Japanese ones. So it's just terrible. It really is. You know, that when you do business here, they'll use the phone and the fax. And of course, people here are using Line and all these other instant messaging things to talk to their friends and family and so on, co-workers probably. When it comes to doing business, you know, that you can get some of them that will do emails. Oh, that's the other thing. The websites will often not have an email address or a contact us button. So even if you do manage to find the website and you go, right, I'll send him an email, quite often there's no email address, or there's no contact us button with a contact us page. Quite often there's nothing, just the phone number and the fax, again with the fax number, you know, and the phone and the fax number, no email address. And then occasionally you do get an email address or a contact us form, and then you send them an email and it bounces. And again, the email address will be some random collection of letters and numbers, you know. There's a real obsession with that here. People are really paranoid about privacy, and to a point that's not rational, because, you know, they have email addresses that are all random letters and numbers. It's like, well, okay guys, so as you can see, one camera just died, so I'm just going to continue with the other camera. So the sound quality might have just dropped, sorry, but the other camera just died. So yeah, so you get these email addresses that are just random letters and numbers, and send them an email, and quite often it bounces back, and it says, sorry, we couldn't contact this email address, you know, and you never know why that was, whether it was because that email address isn't current anymore, or what the problem is, but it happens regularly. It happens regularly. So what almost always happens is you end up giving up on the internet with these guys. You know, their website's no good to you, you can't communicate with them by email, and then you're forced to the phone number or fax with them, you know, and that's quite often what will happen. If you phone them, they'll fax you information, you know, to some fax number that you have to have, or turn up at your doorstep. We've had that in the town where we live, where we do business with people. Quite often, sort of without announcing themselves first, they'll just turn up at your doorstep. They won't call you first and say, is it okay if I drop around to your house? They just turn up on your doorstep. And we're actually going to make a video about this in the near future too. That's really common in Japan. People just show up at your doorstep without telling you first. It's really, really common. And again, people just accept it here. People don't complain about it, or you know, people are really patient with it and just accept it, that people just turn up on your doorstep unexpectedly. And that's what they'll often do. Whereas in other countries, we might send an email to a person. Here, they'll just turn up at your doorstep. You know, I wanted to talk to you about that thing, you know, that business thing. It's like, oh, okay. You know, come in. So anyway, there it was. Just a heads up, guys. Be prepared for this. It's very much, and this is a common thing in Japan too, is that quite often you feel like you're living in the future, because some of the technology here is amazing and some of the things here are really, really futuristic and really amazing. But other times it really is like living in the past. You know, the society itself can often be like living in the 50s, and in this case the technology is very much like living in the 90s. You know, for the reasons that we said, it hasn't evolved much from what was introduced here in the 90s, or whenever the internet first came here and websites first happened here, and then it sort of hasn't changed since then. So anyway, there it was. Hope somebody found that interesting. More videos coming soon.